Good evening, everybody. This is Eva from SocaMom.com, and it is time for Caribbean Mom Chat. We are going to be talking breastfeeding today, tonight, and all of the issues that we've had, what it's like to be a breastfeeding mom in the Caribbean or Caribbean American community, and just some of the issues that are coming up right now about public breastfeeding and that type of thing. So we're just going to jump right into it. First, we'll do our introductions. Of course, you know I'm Eva. Already said that, from SocaMom.com. On Twitter, I'm at SocaMomDC. And on Facebook, sorry. I don't know if y'all can hear that. Okay, sorry about that. I was playing myself in my ear. Anyway, on Facebook, it is facebook.com/SocaMom, and then spelled out DOTCOM. Okay, I don't have any huge special projects going on right now. We just finished the Anansi Festival, and I'm still in recovery. So that's it. So Alicia.
Hey guys, Alicia Simone here from rewindandcomeagain.com, your online destination for all things Caribbean American. Well, not all things, some things, whatever. You can find me online on Twitter at Rockablog, RACABLOG. And what do I have going on? I am plugging my friend's play. Guyanese actress and writer Ingrid Griffith has a one-woman show coming out starting July 17th for a 2-week run in New York City. It's called Demerara Gold, and it's semi-autobiographical, and it's about a girl's journey from her immigration story, basically, from Guyana to America. Her parents leave her in the custody of her grandmothers, and over a period after 5 years, she comes to join them in America, and all the shenanigans, the ups and downs of being left, of living with your grandparents, and of coming to your parents in a new country. It's a really good show, and I highly recommend everyone comes out to check it out. Starting July 17th, all tickets are $20. Group tickets available, of course, with discount. Please go to demeraragoldshow.com. Let me spell it out for you guys. DEMERARAGOLDTHESHOW.com for all the information, tickets, about the actress, and all that good stuff. Thank you.
All right. Now, Narissa is here. Can you hear us? Can she hear us?
I see her.
Yeah, we see her, but not hearing her.
Well, I don't think we can hear her yet, so we'll come back to her. So, Stacy.
Hi,
tell us about yourself.
My name is Stacy Alfonso Mills. Apart from being a communication consultant, I am a children's author, and I've just released 2 months ago my 3rd book, along with the first coloring book that I've done as well. Published that. I've self-published, and my books are The Boys of Sinclair Hill, 2 books under that series, and the new one is called Manatee Has a Question. And you can follow me on Stacy Alfonso Mills Facebook page, or I have a website called StacyAlfonsoMillsBooks.com, and it's StacyAlfonsoMills Books.com. So just trying to get the books out. They've been doing very well, and just trying to continue to promote as much as possible, and just bring these books to life internationally as well as regionally and locally. Thank you.
Very cool. Okay. See, these are some busy ladies that have taken the time out to talk about breastfeeding tonight, even though I gave them like no notice. Narissa, can you hear us yet? Not yet. Okay. So Carrie. She is brand new to the chats. So
brand spanking new.
Brand new. Can you introduce yourself to all of us?
Sure. My name is Carrie Ann Reed Brown. I am the primary voice on the blog Carry On Friends, and I like to think of it as your great conversation on the web, where we talk about all things Caribbean American in terms of our perspectives. We have a really wonderful flair about our culture, and I feel like we need additional places for us to express the various shades of ourselves and personality and character. The website is Carry, Carry, on friends, one word, .com. My Twitter handle is Carry on Kerry. A little wordplay there, and there is also Carry on Friends. I'll be tweeting from both. In terms of projects, the blog is a little under a year. September will be a year. I invite everyone to visit and participate. And my most recent article is a funny one. It's what happened when I did not listen to my mom when she told me back in high school to come home early from a party. And you will hear what happened. Typical Caribbean parents. So check that out.
Well, we are happy to have you. Everyone, you've probably seen the other ladies on chats before, but hopefully we can get Carrie on some more chats too.
Yeah.
So tonight we're talking breastfeeding. Hopefully Narissa will be on very soon and she can introduce herself. You guys know her. She's an author, and wait, I think I see, no, wait, almost. I got excited for a second. Okay. But Narissa, you know, she's an author and she is an inspirational blogger, and she keeps us abreast of news and just everything that we need to know about what's going on in the Caribbean community. Sometimes in America, sometimes in the Caribbean, it just depends. So, breastfeeding.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hey, she's here.
Hi.
See, I just finished introducing you. Like, she's gonna be here in a second, and now you're here. So you can go ahead and introduce yourself. You can go ahead and do your thing.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Narissa.
Really good to be here. I suppose next to everything else I do, parenting is probably my biggest job. And so I'm glad to be here to talk about breastfeeding. I have 4 children, and I breastfed all of them. So let's get the conversation going.
Oh, boy, you did better than me. I couldn't do it. Okay, so I'll start off. Man, see? How about this? I'll start off with the first question. And then don't forget to tell your breastfeeding story at the beginning, and then you could go ahead and answer the question. When it comes to breastfeeding in public, that's the big thing right now, is trying to normalize breastfeeding, which I think is normal anyway, but I don't know, maybe they're trying to normalize the public aspect of it. How do you feel about that? Is that something that you believe will ever become the norm? That you can just, sit at a restaurant and whip it out and everybody eat at the same time? I mean, do you think that that's something that's ever going to happen, or is it just, a passing kind of a parenting political type thing?
I think for me, growing up in Jamaica, to me, the first thing is breastfeeding, seeing as something that's normal. Seeing something as natural. So growing up in the Caribbean, I mean, it wasn't odd to see someone nursing their child somewhere on the park bench or something. I think where it goes, I think in an American culture where people are still kind of to breastfeed or to not breastfeed, and what's acceptable forms of nudity, so it's okay for someone to walk into a party with their butt cheeks out, but in terms of nursing and feeding a child, it's like, oh my God, you shouldn't do that. So it's really that perspective. I think, we can be contradictory and puritanical when it's necessary, when it's not necessary. I just feel like it's whoever it is. I feel it's no problem. And again, it's because of my culture of growing up in Jamaica, where it's just normal. And maybe Jamaica is getting a little Americanized too, but that's another conversation for some other time.
Oh, we have 12 months in a year. We got plenty of time. We do this every month, second Tuesdays. If you want to talk about it, we'll talk about it.
All right.
Alicia, what do you think?
That's an interesting point, though, about I mean, I grew up here, so I don't know what's normal in the Caribbean. So to hear the difference of, it's not a thing, or at least it wasn't when you were younger in Jamaica, and to come here and see people are scandalized or whatever. I kind of don't. I get it because we're a little more uptight over here, but as you said, at the same time, on one hand, if I walk around with my boobs out in a low cut bra in a low cut top, everyone's fine with that. But if I pop one out to feed my child, it's disgusting and scandalous and whatnot. It's a weird dichotomy, and I don't really understand, why Americans' relationship with body and sexuality is like that. But I kind of don't think. I think slowly it'll become a little more normalized, but I think there'll always be this undercurrent of puritanical uptightedness because I just feel like that just runs in American veins, and there's always going to be some undercurrent of cover up, what are you doing, that's gross.
Yeah.
So Narissa, what do you think? She's still there?
Oh, I think she's.
Think she froze again?
I
Yes.
have no problem with it from
there she
my
is.
first child to the last. I Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
I breastfed all of my children in public wherever I was. My second child, I was in.
Second child, you were where? We didn't hear that part. Oh, she went away. She went away again.
University.
Uh-oh,
And
okay.
she would go to class with me.
Uh-oh.
We missed part of what you said. We heard you up to
Am I going and coming?
Yep, you went out for a second. What was the last thing we heard? That you breastfed from the first to the last. You still there?
Okay. Second child, I was in university in the UK, and I would
Okay.
take her to. Yes.
Wow.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
I think she
Narissa, where
went
are
out
you?
again. She
Oh,
might have gone
no.
out.
Sorry if you can't hear me.
Uh-oh. See, we hear you perfect for like a second. I mean,
Hi.
it's perfect. Okay, you're back?
Uh-oh.
And then you
Yeah,
went
I'm
away.
here. I can hear you.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
hearing everything. So.
So we hear you for a second and then you
Okay,
go out.
I think there is a delay. So.
Okay. So you were in university. So you can start there.
In university in the UK with my second child, I would take her to class with me, and I would feed her. I've never had a problem feeling comfortable doing it in public anywhere I was in the world at the time. So it's kind of interesting to see this big furor about this public breastfeeding when it should be absolutely normal and natural to do that.
That is true. That is true. So, Carrie, what was your experience?
Well, I have two kids, one 16, one 2, and my experiences really, in preparation for this call, I realized how my experiences differed in the span of 15 years. So when I first had my daughter, there weren't all these. All right, let me back up a little bit. For some reason, I think America is treating breastfeeding as a new age thing. It's the cool thing to do.
Mhm.
Whereas, culturally, I grew up, and as kids, when you're playing what you call dolly house and you're playing mommy and daddy, you use the dolly and you put it up to your boobs because it's normal to do that's what parents do. You push it up to your boobs because you're breastfeeding, and that's normal. But, 16 years ago, almost 17, breastfeeding was like, it's just something to be done. It wasn't necessarily something that caught on. Now, I just had my son. It's like it's breastfeeding. It's all the rage. And I think that really captures you know, the difference in the society and how people treat it. But for us and people in the Caribbean and other places, it's like breastfeeding is what we do. It's what makes us a mother, if we can do it. Because I understand that there are some people who, for whatever physical reasons, it's not allowable. But if you can do it, why deny us the right to do that, or try to shame us if we are trying to give our child what our child needs in that moment? Do we delay feeding them or bonding with them because you feel that it's making you uncomfortable? So my experiences with breastfeeding, I was in college with my daughter. I couldn't pump. I didn't have a place to pump. I couldn't do all of that. So I had to stop nursing pretty quickly. Whereas now, you know, I'm working. I have a room that I could go pump. I have a fridge that I could store it in. You know, so 16 years, I see the changes. And I feel like we need more, and not to make it seem as if it's just a fad. It's something that everyone needs to do, because the products are really expensive. So we're just like, so that in and of itself, that's probably another reason why not more women are doing it, because it's cost prohibitive. So yeah, that's my experiences in between my daughter and my son. I can see how the whole concept, the American concept around breastfeeding has changed.
Now, actually, I agree with you there, Carrie-Ann.
Oh, thank you.
I have 3 boys, and I breastfed all 3. And ironically, my first son was born in the States during the 90s, so we lived there, and I never experienced any issues breastfeeding in the States. And came back and lived in Trinidad when my other 2 sons were born, and again, did not experience any issues here either. I find it strange that now it's become something as though somebody's trying to now brand breastfeeding or rebrand the breastfeeding, and it's suddenly become almost a sexual issue rather than a simple, normal breastfeeding, feeding baby, nourishing issue. I agree that this is normal, and it was not an issue before, so I'm a bit surprised that we are having all these concerns now about women not being able to, or being uncomfortable, or being made to feel uncomfortable doing that. And I remember when I lived in the States, the company I worked at, I mean, they didn't have the facilities back then with, you know, a special room and stuff, but I did have my boss who allowed me to go into her office and pump during certain times of the day. And there wasn't any problem with that at all. That just seemed, it was a simple thing about asking, is this what you want to do? And I said yes. And I attended conferences where I had to work, and I was given time where I could leave and go back to my room or wherever I was and pump if I needed to. So I find it strange now that my son, who is now 20, that 20 years later, we seem to have gone a bit backward in accepting something that's so normal and suddenly trying to make it into something that it isn't, and making it difficult to do that. I really can't say at all that we've got that issue here in Trinidad. We don't seem to have gone away from that normal act at all. As a matter of fact, we have more pediatricians who are doing a whole lot more in terms of promoting breastfeeding, and for longer if they can. If mothers can breastfeed longer, they're actually trying to promote that you extend the breastfeeding for as long as you can, for the health benefits and the bonding benefits as well. The covering up, I know that there are some women who feel that they need to cover, and I remember hearing some women talk about covering, not wanting to cover their baby's head completely. I mean, the breastfeeding encourages bonding as well, because in a lot of cases, the child looks up at you, and you get that moment to bond if you can. I personally, so I was just one who sort of, I guess I invested in the bra that you sort of had the little latch, so that just one area was exposed and sort of top was uncovered. And so that was fine for me, but I did not, because I didn't want to cover my child's head at all. I didn't see the need to do that. And I felt comfortable just covering the top if possible. And if it wasn't possible, then it wasn't possible. I think it's what the mother feels comfortable with, but I really am surprised at how much, hearing how uncomfortable this is making a lot of people in the States. It's surprising to me.
I didn't. I tried to, be discreet with mine. Eventually, I didn't breastfeed with my first one. My second one I did for part of the time because I got pregnant while he was still breastfeeding. So, yeah, that whole breastfeeding is a natural birth control, that's a lie. Just so
Yeah,
if
oh,
anybody
yeah,
was
it is.
wondering,
I learned that
it
too,
is a
the
lie.
hard way.
Okay? It's a lie. We're dispelling myths on here tonight, ladies.
Yes.
So, yeah, I couldn't finish with him. I think he only got like 4 months. But with my daughter, I actually got to experience what it was like. And I can't say that I had any backlash from anybody. I think it was more me than anybody else. I don't think anybody made me feel uncomfortable or anything like that. But I think that I was uncomfortable because of the way that I was raised. And when I say that I was raised, I don't think that my mother didn't tell me about it or anything like that. I just didn't see it. I grew up in America in the South, and that's not something that people did in public. You just didn't really see it. And, I didn't really know anything about it. Once I got to my third child, and my mom is a retired pediatrician, she's like, I think you should try now. I mean, this is the third time. You said you're finished, so you might want to try it. And she, of course, was like, I don't know why you covering up and investing in all these things that cover and do this, that, and the third. Just whip it out and go for it. And I'm going, I don't even know you. Because she didn't breastfeed me. And all of my dollies, like you guys said, had bottles. It wasn't put it up to my chest because I had never really seen that. So
Right.
covering up, I did, or I would actually go to the car. Like if I was in public, I would leave and go to the car
All right. Okay.
because it was me. Nobody was telling me, "Ew, that's gross." It was all inside of my head. Now, if I had to do it again, I probably would just whip it out wherever I was because I don't have time to be
Mhm.
going back to the car. But I
That's
think
right.
some of it was inside of me more than society. So when I see people with all this kind of, protest and this, that, and the third, I can understand it, but I can't remember ever having any kind of pressure put on me. Now, I have seen headlines where people have been put out of public places
Yes.
and things
Yeah.
like that, which is unbelievable to me because, like the airport, stuff like that, people get put out of the airport. Did you hear about that?
No.
And
No.
yeah,
Which airport was this?
I, I don't even know which one. I have a feeling that it was nearby here. I have a feeling it was like a Baltimore or something like that. But somebody got put out of, I believe it was an airport, and now on the website for the BWI airport, I believe it was BWI, it says that breastfeeding is allowed in all areas of the airport. Like it's actually
Wow.
on their website. So just in
Wow,
case some
Yeah.
security guard tells you put it away, it's allowed in
Right.
all areas.
that's crazy.
Girls are laughing.
But don't
I
you
think
Yeah.
think?
I think part of it, there was a picture circulating maybe last week or 2 weeks ago on the web of this young black woman at her graduation with her daughter or
Oh,
her
Oh
yes.
child
yeah.
on
Right.
her boob, and everyone's just like, oh my God, this is happening. And I'm like, to me, I'm like, I don't get what's the big deal. If she wasn't graduating from college, then there would have been a whole other different thing going on with that. But she's graduating, she's nursing her child because right now there's a push to have more African Americans breastfeed. So
Hmm.
she's already she's graduating college. She's an African American nursing, breastfeed, whatever you want to call it. So what is the issue? And again, it's that comfort in um, what we think is normal. We're desensitized to nudity in one form, but we
Right.
Yes.
have issues with it in another form.
There's a
And
confusion of what the nudity is, isn't there?
Right.
exactly.
And is that even nudity though? Is
No,
it?
but that's
Not.
it. It
If
isn't.
you
Yeah.
can, but people are very, very sensitive to. I feel this is a very American thing because, as you said, Eva, like I myself, even though my family is Caribbean, we didn't have a lot of young children in the family. I guess when I was growing up, so I never saw breastfeeding. So when I have two boys who are 14 and 15 now. I breastfeed with them only because I was trying to be the best mother possible, and I figured this was one of the ways, but I didn't really know what I was doing. So I didn't get to breastfeed that long, but same way, I didn't feel any outward pressure from people to cover up, but because it wasn't normal, I didn't see it, I felt the need to cover up and to hide and, you know, and not let people know. But I really think it's a very, very American thing that any flesh that is not like hair and up it has some sex. There's a possibility of being a sexual nature to it. So that picture, I think, a lot of what incited the whole fury over the picture of the girl graduating was that she had very full breasts, and you could see a lot of it. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't just a small piece. It was you could see kind of all around, and like you couldn't see. You know what I mean? Like there was more than usual, and people were just. I feel like people would see her and were picturing her naked. So
well, like me. See, I didn't have that problem because they'd have been like, "What's she doing with her shirt?" Because I don't have. They wouldn't have seen nothing but shirt and baby's legs. That's it. I don't know what I was covering.
Had that problem with me either. Yeah.
I just feel like it immediately sparks a thing in people where they're like, they start picturing you naked. They start thinking of sex. They don't see the baby at all. They just see the breast. They really don't.
It's kind of funny.
I remember my husband who was not a Trinidadian, he's British. When we were going through his residency process, we had just had the third baby, and he was only a few weeks old when we. Well, second baby. He was only a few weeks old when we had to meet with the immigration officer. He was literally about 3 weeks old, so he was in full-fledged only breastfeeding. There was nothing else but breast milk. And when a baby decides he's hungry, and there's nothing else you can do about that. That baby is going to scream, and you're not going to have a conversation until the baby either gets fed or falls asleep from screaming. And we were in this very small room with this immigration officer who was taking a very long time, unnecessarily long. And when, you know, my baby Matthew started screaming and he needed breastfeeding, I said, well, I'm going to have to breastfeed him. And if I have to stay here during this interview, then I'm going to have to breastfeed here. And I proceeded to breastfeed, and he rubbed that very quickly, I have to tell you. But at the end of the day, I had to breastfeed, and I said to him, I'm going to have to breastfeed because I am only breastfeeding. There are no options. There's no milk. There's no bottle because I am right here sitting in front of you with him in my hand, and I'm going to have to. And I could see that he initially said, well, okay, but it didn't take long before you could tell he was uncomfortable with the process and wrapped it up. But at the end of the day, this is a process of just really natural behavior because it's what's provided if it's possible, and if you can, you can offer that to your child as long as you can. And if you have that opportunity, then I'm not sure why it's supposed to be made into something else. I do believe what you're saying, that for some reason or somehow there are a lot of people who are looking at this as a sexual thing and not a natural feeding, bonding thing, which is what it has always been. I'm not sure what has happened over the last couple of years where it's become a sexual process or sexual act rather than a natural bonding, feeding, beautiful thing that we should be able to do.
Well, it could also be part of the whole, I don't know if this is kind of biblical, but, women are so surrounded by all these physical, gross things that happen to them, and they bleed, they squirt milk,
yes, I can't. You are killing me.
All this grossness surrounding women.
Absolutely right. You are
that
right.
To now have a human being feeding on. No, I can't.
And you're right. And I said I have 3 boys, and one of the things that I said to my husband is I refuse to allow our 3 boys to grow up ignorant about what women. Not just what we are, but what happens to us. They can't just learn about what happens to boys. They must also learn about what happens to girls, because they will become very ignorant men when it's time for them to find their women. And I refuse to allow that, because you're right, they do not know how to conceptualize these very natural things. And I remember telling my son, when he saw, we were looking at television, and he was just about 8, and he saw breastfeeding, and he said, "What is that woman doing?" I said, "She's breastfeeding." And he said, "Well, what happens?" I said, "Well, that's what you do when the babies are born, and you give them milk." And he looked at me and looked at my breast, and he said, "Did I do that?"
That is
"Yes, you certainly did."
My daughter has no problem with it. My sons are like,
Yes.
ew. I just, ew. Please tell me that you I can't. That's gross.
It was surprising
Like,
to
it's
them.
not gross.
Actually, they understand that, oh, and I said, "But this is what we do, and this is what God provided." He said, "But how does that happen?" I said, "You know what? I have no idea how God knows when to do this, but it happens when the baby's there, and there's some mothers who can, and there's some mothers who can't. But this is what you're offered, and this is what you get to feed you and nourish you." And then it started to become, oh, this is a feeding process. And instead of breasts and boobs, it became a feeding process. So, I think this is one of the problems we've got, and I don't think it's just in any American society. I think Caribbean, we've got that issue where we do not teach our our children, our boys, how to understand and appreciate girls in terms of who they are, what they go through, the differences, so that when they become men, they see women and understand what women have to go through, the menstrual cycles, the whole thing, everything, all of which is connected to being a woman. And I don't think they understand that because they were never really exposed to that.
No, it's all a big secret. It's all a huge secret, and because we're hiding it from them, we're hiding it from ourselves even, when society moves on and starts evolving and women stand up and like, this is ridiculous, I'm not doing that, all hell breaks loose. All hell breaks loose.
I am tweeting my back out. This is hilarious and serious and funny and everything at the same time. This is special.
I can't keep up. I mean, for me, breastfeeding was the way I bonded with my daughter and my son, especially when we are now in a culture, and I'm so fortunate I grew up in Jamaica the time I did, because there's this other issue of maternal leave or parental leave, which is the PC term for it. Most mothers, they don't have they're allowed a 3-month period, but is 3 months really a lot compared to my friend who's wife in Canada who's like, yeah, I'm out for a year, or maybe in England it's the same.
Kidding me?
So nursing, breastfeeding is my opportunity to bond within that very short period of time before I have to go to work, because that is when the emotions set in. You're now pumping and you're remembering, oh my God, just last week I was home all day and I was able to do this all day, or now I'm switching. So, and this is part of the reason why maybe some mothers decide to stay home, because they lose or they miss out on that critical bonding that you get once you are able to breastfeed.
Yes.
So, if you're not able to do it, that's one thing. But if we are, don't deny us of that opportunity to bond. It's such a beautiful thing. And again, the educating is the part of it. I don't, again, Alicia, you said it, and I never thought of it that way, the sexual part of it. Because I was about to say, well, what happened to that woman in Times Square that's walking around literally naked, but she's painted? I'm like, oh, wow. That's why all the guys are photographing her, because they're thinking of sex. So seeing a mom with a baby, maybe that anger is, oh my God, you look sexy, but my God, you have a baby, so I'm pissed you have a baby in your lap right now.
Yeah, you feel dirty. What I'm doing is not dirty. You got a dirty mind. That's your problem. That is funny.
Yes.
Well, I'm gonna confess a little something here, just between us girls.
And the rest of the world on the internet.
And the rest of the world. That when I realized I was having a boy the first time, and I was, deciding I was going to breastfeed, and I was like, I'm big into researching everything, and then no one ever brought this to me, but out of my head came, okay, I'm going to breastfeed a boy. Is that okay? Is that weird? Am I going to feel a certain way? Is that like molestation? I mean, I don't think I ever verbalized it to anyone, but it would always kind of be silent in the back of my head, like, am I doing something wrong? Am I enjoying this too much? Is this enjoyment maternal, or is it sexual? I need to watch myself. Like, I did have those thoughts sometimes. I don't know where they came from. I know my parents didn't put that in me, but I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
Well, I thought about it before I did it because I was like, oh. And then what's really funny is when I found out I was having a girl, I had the same thought, like, oh, wait, I'm confused, you
Mm,
know. But what's funny is once you finally do it, it doesn't even matter. It's your kid. It's like it
right.
doesn't, none of that, that was like before I ever tried it. And then as soon as I tried it, I was like, oh, so it's like a bottle, but on me. And,
Hmm.
you know, the thing that was really weird to me was things like letdown. I thought that
Yes.
was odd.
Yes.
All the regular stuff that I didn't know about because my mom couldn't tell me because she didn't breastfeed.
Mm.
So
All right.
all of the
Okay.
things that they describe it in a book.
Yes.
And so letdown I didn't know about. I didn't know like when you wait too long what it feels
Yes.
like
Right. Right.
or what kind of a panic you get into and you're in a public setting and you're like, am I leaking?
Yes.
Will
Yes.
is this on my clothes? So, those kinds of things I think I missed out on since my mother didn't breastfeed. I didn't get to hear from somebody close to me who had done it what it would be like. So yeah, I had
Yes.
those weird thoughts like this is a boy attached to my boob. I find this to be odd. Or this is a girl attached to my boob. It is odd. But once I did it, I was like I couldn't I can't I think back going I can't believe I even thought that because
Right.
but you're conditioned to think there's something wrong with it,
Right.
especially here
Yeah.
in America. You're like, only hippies did that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what
Hmm.
word we used for hippies, but like now we call them granola people. So only like granola people who like made, you know, wore clothes made out of hemp or whatever. And
Oh.
yeah, I mean, you only those are the people who breastfeed.
Ah.
So
I
yeah.
think that I think the other issue also, people, when it comes to breastfeeding, it's always the extremes that are shown. So the extreme is that kid who is 5 who's standing on the box latched onto his mom's boob, that's still
Hmm.
breastfeeding, and you're like, come on, this kid is 5 or 6, he should stop.
Hmm.
Or the person who, I don't want to say there's a tasteful way, but in a way there is a tasteful way to go about breastfeeding in public. And maybe someone did it in an off-color way. I have no idea. But this is always what people see. So they create this narrative or this idea around breastfeeding that's based on maybe a few extreme behaviors and not
Hmm.
what the majority of moms are doing, because most moms are protective. When you're
Hmm.
breastfeeding, you're holding your child near, you're looking around, you're not like, yeah, come see me, I'm nursing.
Check me
you know
out in my A's because that's all I had. Look
Selfie.
at my A's.
You're not doing that. You're like really holding your child. You are watching. Your animal instinct is in. It's bonding, but you're looking up periodically to make sure no one's coming near your
Yeah.
child. It's
Yes.
really, this, it's not us like, hey, check us out. Hey, it's not that. And I just feel like people see these, there's a time, I can't remember which magazine, maybe it was Time, it was Newsweek or People, this woman, she was on the cover, her son was more than 5, maybe 7, 8, and he was latched onto her boob. And I think a couple years ago in Desperate Housewives, when I watched it many years ago, this woman, she kept her figure, she had a very small figure, and the one with the whole bunch of kids are like, how do you do it? And the kid still breastfeeds, so she tricked the kid into liking milk from the box and, to stop breastfeed. So I think,
Mercy. I can't.
yeah, it's crazy. But it's always these weird stories about breastfeeding, and I'm like, where these things happen? They don't happen in my
It
neighborhood or
doesn't
my
happen
neck
in
of
real
the
life,
woods,
Yeah.
no.
but yes.
No, no,
So
yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
I think it's just these very one-off images that they see, and then they've created this narrative. But the rule of thumb back in the island was the minute they start busting teeth, that's where you stop breastfeeding.
Now, my rule, okay, how about this child decided she was going to turn and watch TV and was not about to let go?
What?
I was like, okay, see, this is your day. I hope you enjoy it because mommy is done. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
she knew that she could have let go, so she gripped on with teeth. I was like, done.
Oh yes,
We're
yeah,
done. And
yeah. I think
Yes.
it's everybody's, it's your own choice when you decide to stop. I mean,
it is.
personally, I
Yes.
just didn't have the, mainly once you start eating food, like real food, like food, and I
Yeah.
already have to wash them off to make sure there's no infections, no issues like that. But if you're eating like hot dogs and I gotta wash hot dog residue off my, no, that's too much. Too much. I'm good. If you can eat, we're good. You're chewing with back teeth, we're good. You're done.
Once my oldest gave me a nice good bite, I was
Yeah,
like,
that's all it
"Oh,
takes.
you're done, sir. We're over. No
Yeah.
more."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, I
Yeah.
was lucky with my last with my last son. He actually weaned himself because he was just one that loved food. So the minute he started tasting the food, that's it. He didn't even want any more breast, and I was quite amazed by that. I actually was trying to get him, and he was only 5 months, and he
Oh
decided
wow.
that was enough. And I thought, wow, okay. And he's still like that, loves his food. Whereas my other two, I mean, my first one, because I was in the States, I had to go back to work earlier. I went back at 3 months. I actually was able to save up 3 months worth of vacation because you didn't get
Wow.
any maternity leave. So I had to go back, and the
Yeah.
pumping just didn't work for me after a while. It was just became too much. So I had to sort of stop after a while and just breastfeed at night or first thing in the morning. I got some. Whereas my middle son, he really did not want bottle at all, and I had no choice but to just keep going until he was, when the teeth came in, then I said that was it. And he had a hard time weaning off. So it's different for each child. But at the end of the day, I think, I think that education is really important because I think there is some confusion as to what's breastfeeding and what's sexual about the breast. They
Right.
are multifunctional, we agree, we admit that, but I think we do have to get to the point where people understand which is which. And as they say, timing is everything. When you're breastfeeding, you're breastfeeding. You can't be sexual and breastfeeding at the same time. I don't know how that's possible because when it's leaking, squirting, hurting because it's full and you don't want anybody to come
Right.
near you, then there is nothing sexy about that at all.
That's true.
But you're trying to stop it from squirting in your child's face because the child is screaming, trying to go everywhere, and you can't get the child to connect with you. And you're trying to do this in a public place, then no, it isn't sexy at all. It's frustrating for the most part.
I think
And
it
you
kind of falls into that realm where people put women as responsible for keeping men chaste.
yes.
You know, like, well, if you did, my husband would be fine if you weren't walking around in that little skirt. I'm like, what is
Your husband
what
needs
I'm wearing
to
have to
work
do
on
with your
himself.
husband thinking? So when you start breastfeeding in public, it's like you are forcing the people around you, the poor little
Pay
children who might
attention
be
to your
walking
breast.
by, are now
Yes.
going to start thinking of sex because you're breastfeeding. Like,
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
that's
That right there. I mean, it sounds funny when you say it, but it's true.
It is true.
Because
Yeah.
there's got to be some woman walking by. I need you to put that up. Really? Really?
It's like, I think that's why it all goes hand in hand with why it took so long for there to be tampon commercials on TV. Why, like, I remember. Do you guys ever watch the Benny Hill show when you were little?
Yes.
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 But my
Yeah.
father loved that show. I know now
Yeah.
why. But
Yes.
my mother, she was like, "Why you have the kids watching this thing?" And we just thought we knew why it was funny, but we didn't take it as tantalizing. We just thought it was funny. But there's such this fear, and I've even heard, I had a friend who, when she was playing house, when she was little, she'd stick a pillow under her shirt to be pregnant. And the mother lost her mind. What are you doing? You're trying to get pregnant. You're going to have mine and this and that. And she was like, what are you talking about? We're playing house. So there's this fear that anything sexual or anything having to do with the flesh and the body is going to taint and corrupt your child or the people around you. And I don't know how you get rid of that other than through education. Wait for the next generation.
Well, I mean, you've got these Victoria's Secret commercials where, I mean, the only thing that they're naked. They're naked. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's
Yeah.
nothing. You blink, and if your kid has any imagination, they could fill in the blanks with what's
Yes.
missing in that picture.
Yep.
So I don't know how the same society who lets that happen, or has cheerleaders jumping up and down and bouncing around in little or less than nothing, can turn around and say seeing the top part of one of a woman's the top of
Top.
one,
Right.
because the nipple is in the child's mouth, obviously.
Correct. Yes.
So just the top of one, and the rest of you is fully clothed. You're not breastfeeding on a beach, butt naked, laid out. Is too much on a park bench. It's too much. But
Yes.
behind you on that bus stop can be an entire Victoria's Secret ad. Nobody cares.
That's
Mhm.
right.
But you
Yes.
can't sit on that same park bench with a piece of your boob out to feed your
Yeah.
kid. It's too much.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
you know, I don't know that there's like a solution for it other than to just talk to your kids.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it's education, cultural awareness, just health and health. And I mean, we just have to see. We seem to have to go right back to the classes at school that I think in Trinidad at least. I don't know about Jamaica, but Trinidad we've gone away from that, and we're seeing a society of young men and young women that just do not seem to respect themselves and each other. And we've got to go back to that sort of not the home ec, but the sort of classes about human behavior, human nature, the sort of who we are, what we are, can we respect ourselves? This is natural. We've gone away from that, and we have a whole generation, I think, that didn't get to experience those classes that we did, and I think we're seeing now the consequences of that, and maybe we've got to go back to some of those things.
I agree with that. I'm a product of the Jamaican primary school system way back, and I remember getting these books in primary school. I went to a all-girls Catholic school, and we had Christian family life, and you learned about
to me, yes.
all these things, even in primary school. Sex education in the U.S., I don't even know if that exists, because and part of the problem is that everyone's getting their information from the web. So I have to put this in context. There was no World Wide Web when I was going in high school. Yes. And so I needed to have a Christian family life or a home, whatever the other names would be. But also, even though we have the internet, it doesn't beat a conversation where you can ask the questions, and it's like self-diagnosis. You go on WebMD and you're like, oh my God, these things could make you a hypochondriac. You look up and you're like, oh my God, that's what I have. So I think still having the conversation with children, with young adults, because the internet, it's not going to tell you the information that you need to know. It's what you're looking for, because you obviously go on there to look for something, but there's also the caveats that they're not getting from someone else saying, you know what, this is happening, but you should also consider this. So
it's like what to expect when you're expecting book, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
There's a whole lot that they didn't tell you in that book. I remember thinking that when I was in labor, and I thought, they did not talk about this.
Nope.
No, they didn't.
No. They didn't talk about, I'm going to tell you, the thing that bothered me the most was when they told, I had an old school doctor, and first time, so that was like 15 years ago, she was like, okay, you have two people in the room, one person get this leg. Get my leg. What that? They don't do that on TV, and they did not do this in that book. And the other person get the other leg. I'm like, what are you gonna do with my leg? What do you? I'm like, you're seriously about to bend me in half in here? Can I even do that? And then come to find out, there is something called relaxin that allows you to basically become a gymnast.
Yes.
They ain't tell me about none of that.
Dignity is all out the window at that point. Yeah.
Oh, and then random people could come in and check your cervix. Just anybody. They don't have to say, hello, my name is. They could just walk in there and be like, oh, hey. Sometimes they didn't say hi. They just lift up the sheet and go for it. At one point, I was like, I want to ask, are you a nurse or are you just... I mean, I just want to know. Are we friends? Do I even know you? Yeah. Yeah. So they really do need to have a what to expect when you're breastfeeding book, because I had no clue. And there really was no person that could tell me, because I was the first of my friends to have a kid, and
Mm.
Mhm.
my mom was like, I think you should do it, but I can't tell you anything about it. She was like, you need to, because at the time the internet was still new. It was 1999, and she said to find La Leche League, I think it's called Leche
Mhm.
League, something like that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
luckily, they were online at the time. Like they were one of the first. They were on there. It was
Wow.
amazing,
Mhm.
but they still could not tell me everything I needed to know. So you're right. The
Mhm.
Right.
conversations need to happen, internet or not.
It
The
did.
conversation has to
Yes.
happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my
And
mother breastfed.
So
Yeah,
you,
go
so
ahead,
you
carry on.
knew, so you knew what that was
But
about.
I did, but I mean, still, I guess as a child, it wasn't something you discussed, and I don't remember seeing my mother breastfeed because I'm the first, and I don't remember seeing my mother breastfeed my youngest brother, but I'm sure she did.
Hmm.
So it was when I was with my first, it was easy for me to ask, well, what to, and she was sort of prepping me that the first time like the first time your child pulls, there is a lot of pain and pulling,
yes,
and she sort of prepped me for that. And even telling me that, there was still no real preparation for when it actually happened, because you just
exactly.
can't explain how that feels. It's just, it isn't. It's a very difficult thing to explain to anybody.
Yeah.
But I did get that sort of immediate preparation to expect something very strange and weird and that you would never be able to explain is going to happen. So I did have at least my mother to go through those little things with me, and I guess in her time they didn't have all those terms like the letdown and the this and the that. But when I would say to her, oh, it's you get to this point where you don't even want anybody near your breast. It's so full and hard, and
Hmm.
there's so much pain,
Yes.
and there was no term for her in those times, but she understood and she was able to talk you through that. So with my second and third, those things were easy for me to understand, and I understood those things. So and the sort of sort of massaging it to let it out and that sort of thing. They didn't
Yeah.
have the pump in her days, so I
Hmm.
couldn't talk to her about the pump, but I did have somebody who was using it at that time who explained that to me. So there is a lot of conversation. I agree with you, Carrie Ann. A lot of it is about conversation. It's not just in the
Yes.
book as well. The conversation has to happen one-on-one, whether it's support group or friends, family, whoever it is. You get to learn little by little what happens, because there are some things that you learn with each child that you have to
Mhm.
learn that it's new, very new. Um,
Mhm.
and
I
like some people have issues and get infections, and I didn't get that, and I didn't get the sort of nipple problems, but I know a lot of friends did, so I wasn't able to help them with it, but I did say help support them, and they did have it and go through. And it's something that I think the conversations do have to happen, and I think we are missing that. We are a generation, a society that we don't really have conversations anymore. We've gone away from that, and these are things that do have to come back. This is how we learn. It's to interact with people.
It's the
yeah,
back and forth that's missing when you're online.
Yes.
It's like, so cabbage does what again?
yes,
Okay.
yes. And
Or how exactly does it feel? Is it
feel.
burning, or is it,
Right.
what are you feeling? And when you
It's
just read it, the description's not enough.
It's not
it's
enough.
that
Yeah.
instant reaction because for me, just like you, my mom, with my first with my daughter, she was there. She said, you know what, this is what's gonna happen. It's gonna be hard that you can't put your arms down, and she was right on the point with that one.
Yes.
She
Yeah.
You
told
just
you
want to let go and run away.
she's like, it's gonna be painful. You can't do anything, and she told you how to maneuver that.
Mhm.
And the other thing she told me, which the books did not say, and I guess it's this old school Caribbean thing. She's like, you cannot eat that. You're gonna give the baby colic.
Yeah.
You can't eat,
Yeah.
and so much of that is not written in a book or
Yes.
learning from very early that I think now they did it, but back then you can't just stick the breast in the baby's mouth because what happens when you start going to work or someplace, you start leaking all over the place. You need to
Yes.
Yep.
really time
Yeah.
it and, alternate boobs, and you really need to alternate boobs
Yes.
Yep.
and explaining why. So none of that. And that could only come from experience and people wanting to share that.
And from
A book
somebody
is
that
not going to say
you're
that,
comfortable with.
or exactly. And the follow-up questions that
I want to hear it
come
from somebody
from,
that you
what was that?
Oh, you want to hear it from somebody that you trust. That's the
Somebody
other thing,
trust. Yes.
because it's a very
Yes.
personal thing, and
Thing.
you want to hear from somebody who has actually, I mean, how many people can you walk up to, even if it's your own doctor, and be like, what is this? There's something, I feel like my nipple is going to fall off. It's like, who can you walk up to and say that? I mean, luckily you
Yeah.
guys can tweet us if you want to and tell us what you want to tell us and ask whatever you want to
Right.
ask. But I didn't have that when I started. So, feel free to email any of us or message us or however you want to contact us if you got questions. But, I didn't have anybody I could just go to and be like, have you ever had your boob feel like a rock? I mean, they'd be like, no, no, I can't, no. Other than my kid's pediatrician, who happened, and I got very lucky there because my kid's pediatrician at the time was my mom's best friend, and she was like my godmom. So I had somebody to talk to, and of course she was like, you know what you need to do? You need to go get a glass of wine. And, that's not something that, of course, doctors are supposed to tell you, but it's the truth. And it's something that she probably wouldn't have told another one of her patients.
Right.
But if you are like struggling and there's bleeding and there's cracking and all this other stuff, and your kid is screaming and they need to eat and you're crying, they're crying, something as simple as a glass of red wine could just, and you can deal with it in the morning. The kid eats, passes out. You feed them, you pass out, and that's the end of that. Rest them safely in their bumper-free crib and go to sleep. Because we are not doctors. We are not giving medical advice. But I'm just saying, that's what my doctor told me. And it worked. That one time, please don't call CPS. They're fine now. They're big, they're grown, everything is good. Don't call the law on me. They're big now.
In the Caribbean, they did little sherries on the finger, didn't they?
I did a blog post about that.
Yeah.
I did a blog post about that, about Sherry and the layette.
Yeah, in my grandmother's time, that's what my grandmother said. Oh, if the baby has colic, that's what you do.
Yep, and that's same thing my mom said. And I'm like, but Ma, I think all those books on your shelf say that you're not supposed to do that.
You're not supposed to do that.
I think your license says you probably shouldn't do that.
But I think, breastfeeding is hard enough as it is to have any society trying to make it something that it isn't. It isn't an easy thing at all.
No.
It takes a lot of stress and nutrition out of the mother. It takes everything out of a person who's breastfeeding, because you're giving that baby everything that you've got.
And we're talking about that on Twitter now, about how you have to watch what you eat.
You do, and drink. You have to be hydrated, and you have to be. And I remember my mother saying, the minute you start breastfeeding, drink some water, drink some, something. Keep hydrated, and she just kept pushing that in my head, and it was true. You just really have to look after yourself with your own nutrition, because this is what you're giving your child. So to then turn around and all the frustrations and all the hormonal issues that go along with breastfeeding, everything happens when you're breastfeeding. It's not just the feeding part of it, it's everything else that happens to the mother. So it's unfortunate that we are adding this additional frustration onto a mother, on top of everything else that the mother has to go through. And which is totally unnecessary on top of that. I mean, the mother has to go through so many things as it is. Why do we need to add something that's really unnecessary and very untrue, very unnecessary and untrue, I think, to make this into a problem?
Well, we're going to have to do a part 2 when we have Narissa on, because I want to know how she did it with all 4 of them kids in school and didn't flinch. I'm going to need to know. But last words, what would be your wish list for the Caribbean and America? What would be your number one thing on your wish list when it comes to breastfeeding?
For me, can I say, I would say it would just to be seen more. I think almost everything you've spoken about could be solved or close to being dealt with if it's just something that we saw every day and became normal. Like, you know, there are so many people growing up and never see it, so they think it's weird when they do. So if it was something that was just part of, you know, comb my hair, feed the baby, you know, go to work, feed the baby, you know, and we discussed what happens, what women do, this miracle that we are capable of doing in the same breath that we discussed, well, I'm going to go to the store and you know, pick up some fish for tonight. I'm going to pump first and then whatever. You know, like if it became a normal conversation among family and friends, I think that would be one of the best things that could happen for our community.
So, Carrie, what do you think?
I think there's a big aspect to nursing or breastfeeding that is cost prohibitive. I remember reading an article in a parenting magazine when I was waiting in the pediatrician's office, and they were talking about some celebrity who whipped out her boob, and it so happened to be Beyonce, and that African Americans, we have a low number in terms of breastfeeding. But it's very expensive to get a good pump. It's very expensive to get what you need in order to continue with maybe not necessarily physically nursing, but continuing to support your child with your milk. And maybe we need to move away from it being such a trend like organic food and stop treating breastfeeding like an organic thing or non-NGO, whatever the term is. Just it's natural, and so make it more accessible. Find ways to make products, to make nutrition, to make the things that we need to be able to nurse more accessible financially or on a cost basis.
So, Stacy,
I'll
what
tell
would
you,
you
that
say?
big old bag that I travel with is horrible, but that's okay.
And I think some states in America, you get a breast pump regardless. When your
wow.
insurance has to pay. I know in Virginia, your insurance, they have to tell you that you get a breast pump, so you don't have to go out and buy one if you don't want to. When I was having my kids, yes, you had to go out and buy one. Insurance wasn't paying for that.
But again, information.
Right, and some places won't tell you. And the thing is, if you don't say what you're going to do in the hospital, they just give your kid a bottle and call it a day. So if they see you with a bottle, they're not going to offer you the pump. So it's kind of like, you know, what if you change your mind? Like my oldest, he tried to change his mind midstream. I was like, dude, we're 10 days out. I'm not, listen, because some of it had leaked on my shirt, and he was like, what's that? What's that? What's that? I like that. I'm like, nope, but it's coming out of a bottle now. We're done. You had your chance. Sorry, dude. But a lot of times they just won't tell you. But there are some states, and you guys can I'll see if I can find some links to add later, but there are many states that you get a breast pump with your insurance. So there's that.
I would say I would want more education and more awareness done here for both males and females, because we have an issue where it may be a natural thing to see, but most times you have young men and women, young girls and boys who have no idea what actually takes place, the whole process. And so we have husbands who are aware that you're breastfeeding but have no idea what that really means and all that goes into it. And so the support that you really need as a mother, and a new mother and a wife, just isn't there, because the man just really doesn't know, and it's not his fault. He understands that you're breastfeeding, but he doesn't know much more than that. What happens when you're breastfeeding, all that really takes place. So he may expect you to breastfeed because it's natural, you know, it was done hundreds of years ago, it's all natural, and it should be easy as just, you know, get up and moving on, and then they are disappointed when it's not that, and when you can't provide that simplicity of it. So it would be, I think it would be helpful, far more helpful now in Trinidad, especially, to have far more awareness for in the younger ages at schools, get the sex education back into the schools, and include these things, include the breastfeeding, and not just the menstruation cycle, but the childbirth, the breastfeeding, the whole thing, because it's all part of the whole process of it. And we all have to be, both male and female, must be aware and respect what it is. And maybe then it would be seen as a breastfeeding thing and not a sexual thing.
Right.
That's good.
In the future, yeah.
Did everybody give their wish list? I think everybody did. Yeah. I would say on my wish list would be, I think more education is also on my wish list. I know there's like a little doll out there now that I guess there's a doll that came with a fake breast to help if there's a bottle, there's a breast too. So there's a doll that breastfeeds. I don't like you guys said, if you're gonna have a doll that breastfeeds, I don't know why you need a boob. The kid will just shove it up his shirt anyway. You can figure it out. I don't think you need all that, but I think there are some very well-meaning organizations out there, and if they could move on to educating the boys and possibly other women who haven't been exposed to breastfeeding, because I think a lot of the backlash is coming from the women, not necessarily the men. I think there's a lot of women who are offended by it.
Yes, yeah.
Which is odd to me. That's really, really strange. But yeah, I think education for boys and young ladies, especially young ladies now who I have a hard time believing that they care about much of anything. But I mean, it's just like all you care about is selfies. It can't possibly be this way.
Yes.
All you care about is selfies and what filter you can put on to make you look like you have no pores.
Yeah.
That's all they care about.
Oh
but I agree. What? I think the educate. Oh, you didn't know about the no pores? You didn't know about that?
No. I know. Yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. They have apps now that you can take your picture with, like my bald, naked, no makeup face right now. I could look like I just stepped onto the runway in like 3 clicks.
I think I've seen those.
I can do my full makeup. I can give myself higher cheekbones. I can slim my neck. I can make my chin more pronounced, and I can do that in maybe 10 seconds. Add mascara. Do whatever I want to do contouring, all of that. And you can do it on a group photo, so you can make people think your whole crew is bad. Yep.
Oh,
it's crazy. So imagine trying to teach that generation, and you should also nourish your child with your breast. I mean,
and it's not pretty all the time. It's not pretty at all when you're doing that.
I remember a couple years ago, right before my daughter was born, someone else who I went to school with, she didn't nurse because she said she didn't want to have saggy boobs. And I'm like, what? They're going to sag anyway.
Exactly.
Gravity. It don't even matter.
So I'm like, you never know. I guess that's the superficial thing that's going on too, but one step at a time.
We'll just try to get the rest of us to be able to whip them out in public if need be.
Yeah.
And then we'll recruit later. I think. I think we'll recruit later. Well, ladies, I had a blast. I know there's going to be a part B. I know there has to be because this was fun and amazing and definitely informative. It's nice to know that I'm not alone. That's good to know.
Oh no.
So you guys, let's reintroduce ourselves so that people can find us and find out other things that we're up to. Alicia.
Hey guys, this has been real. Thank you, Eva, for having me. Once again, Alicia Simone of Rewind and ComeAgain.com. You can find me on Twitter at Brackablog, RACABLOG.
So who's that? Carrie.
Hi everyone. I had a blast on my first Caribbean Mom Chat. Find me at carryonfriends.com, CARRYON friends.com, Twitter, Carry on Kerry, CARRYONKERRY, or Carry on Friends on Twitter.
And Stacy.
Hi, everyone, again. This is an excellent topic. I hope we can come back to this at some point. I think it's fabulous, that great panel. And you can find me on Facebook, Stacey Alfonso Mills Books, or visit my website, staceyalfonsomillsbooks.com, StaceyAlfonsoMills Books. Thank you.
All right, everybody, we had a fantastic time. My name is Eva from SocaMom.com, and you can follow the hashtag on Twitter, Caribbean Mom Chat. You can follow us on Twitter. Everyone gave you their Twitter handles. Mine is at SocaMomDC, and we are here on Tuesdays, the second Tuesday of each month. So we're here for about an hour and some change. So, come on and check us out Tuesdays, second Tuesdays every month. And you can always check the hashtag to see what we're saying in between times. In the meantime, hashtag is Caribbean Mom Chat on Twitter. So we'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye, guys.